Hello, it's Nick here. As you can see, menopause thoughts that have sprung to mind. So somebody posted a question on one of my vlogs, which was, do I still get angry and get rage? And for some reason, that question really made me pause for thought. So number one, thank you very much for asking the question, because I think it has really helped me clarify some thinking on this. So I actually don't know how many years in I am. I think roughly six or seven. I think I've been menopausal for 6 or 7 years. And certainly there was a period of several years, actually, certainly. What am I trying to say? Sorry, I'll start again. So if I think back, and this is what the question made me think about, it made me think about the pattern and what symptoms I had when. I think when I started becoming very menopausal, the overriding symptom was of chronic fatigue, of a feeling of not being able to cope, and of feeling desperately sad and anxious, very, very, very low self-esteem, losing any sense of value in myself, having really quite dark thoughts at times, really quite dark, like, would the world be, better off without me? What is the point of me? Etc., etc. So I remember that really quite clearly. And then obviously I started getting some help and speaking to some medical professionals, and I started HRT and all kinds of other things, and that was, really helpful. But one of the two of the big things that continued with the anxiety. So worrying about things, and that still continues now. I get really anxious, really, really anxious, and there isn't a rhyme or reason, or sorry, my glasses are really dirty, they're driving me mad. There isn't a rhyme or reason or logic to it, and I just can't seem to get rid of it. So the anxiety continues. But the rage, and I would really, really rage, and I would feel so angry, so resentful, furious, absolutely furious, at the world, at my family, at my loved ones, at friends, at some random stranger in the street. Just a real fury and rage, and that was present for a long time, a lot of the time. And a big thing I've noticed the last few months is I don't have as much rage. Now, maybe that fiery part of me, maybe it's burnt a lot of what there was to burn. I don't know, but one of the observations I would make is I've taken a break from work. So I am pretty much not working at the minute, apart from the work I want to do. So I like vlogging, obviously. I talk to people all the time, and I do it. I genuinely do it in a way that I hope helps people. This isn't some narcissistic trout pout and filtering and all that bollocks. I generally just want to share things that I think might be of use. But I also really like writing. I really like being creative. I like upcycling. I love doing the garden. It's very much like, we live the good life here. We've got 5 dogs, we've got ducks and chickens, we've got a nice allotment, etc., etc. So, and there were a couple of reasons I took a break from work. So, as a sole midwife, I work at end of life. Apologies if I'm repeating, because if you do listen to my vlogs, you'll know all of this. And I provide emotional and psychological support to people at end of life. But of late, I just started to feel very, very sad a lot of the time, because when you're working at a very deep emotional level with people that you do create a bond with and they die, it is sad. That's the reality. So I recognised that I was feeling very, very sad a lot of the time, and I probably needed to take a little bit of a break. But the second big reason was I was feeling a bit out of balance, and I was feeling that I wasn't really available for my family, and for the other stuff that I love, being the homemaker, doing a lot of the creative things that I do, cooking, etc. The list can go on. And so I'm not as resentful, and the rage is nowhere near what it was. Now, it could be that actually, and I suspect it's a bit of everything, because life's nuanced and there aren't generally black and white answers, despite the fact we're desperate for them. I just don't think they exist most times. I think that I've definitely progressed in my menopause. I'm 52 years old now, so it may well be that I'm kind of moving towards, well, one would hope, moving towards calmer waters. Secondly, I do have HRT implants in, which I think help enormously. But one of the big things is I think I've got a lot more balance, because I'm not having to rush out to work every day. I'm not having to live to military precision. I have far more freedom. I feel very liberated, and I'm able to really involve myself in things that bring me great joy. And I wonder if part of that is actually I've given myself permission. I've given myself the freedom to be able to say what's really important to me, and to make time for what's important to me. And for me personally, it is really important to me to be very present in the home for my kids and my husband. I like taking care of them. I like making house. I like cooking. I like doing all of this stuff. I'm not saying for 1 minute that's what women should be doing at all, because actually I think an empowered woman is a woman that is given the space and the freedom to be able to recognise what's important to her, and most importantly has the choices to be able to engage in the kind of life that's really important to her, which might be doing what I'm doing. It might be running a massive corporate firm. It could be doing whatever it is. I'm not saying for 1 minute it should be A, B, C, or D. I think the whole point is it's about us being honest with ourselves about what's important to us, and being in an environment where we can we have the freedom to be able to do that. I'm really blessed. I do have that freedom. I did have a career for a long time. Actually, I worked really long hours, and I worked very hard for a long time, many years in the corporate world, and then after that running my own business. And so I'm now in a position where I'm not, I don't have to, we don't have to go out, I don't have to go out and earn, because we don't need both salaries. We can quite happily, we're quite comfortable with the situation as it is. My husband still works full time, and I work in a different way, and we very much see ourselves as a team, and that is the language we use. And the language we use is that we're a team, and that the money that's earned is earned by both of us playing a role. Mine is more of a supporting role, but it's still a very valid role. So I think that's a long way of getting around to saying, I've thought long and hard about why is the rage subsiding. I think so. In summation, I think it's because I think I have allowed the fire to burn. So when we talk about end of life, we talk about elements, and actually these elements they exist in us all the time. And those elements are earth, water, fire, and air. And in normal everyday life, it's like a cycle. We go through those elements. Actually, you can really see it in the menstrual cycle. So earthing is very grounded, it's very physical. It's whether you feel strong, whether your energy's up, you've got good appetite, you feel well in yourself, you've got good muscle tone, good appetite. It's a very it's physicality and strength. Water is very emotional, it's reflection, it can be very teary, it can be a real, an emotional bathing of yourself, really. Fire can be really angry, it can be where the rage comes. And the thing is about fire, we always say, don't try and smother a fire. Don't try and smother it. The smoke can be toxic. If there is stuff to burn, allow it to burn. So allow that rage out, allow it to be verbalized, allow it to flow. And then air is a very peaceful acceptance. It's the calm after the storm. And air is actually the final stage that people go into as they pass from this world. And it is very, very ethereal and peaceful. But I found those elements really useful in terms of helping me to navigate what's going on. And there was definitely, and I do wonder whether the menopause actually follows some of those elements, because, you know, there's a lot of, but interestingly, what I've noticed in the menopause is the order's different. So I would say I go into fire before I go into water. Because, you know, you can get really fiery and the rage comes and you're so angry about something and you let that out and you rant and you rage, and then my tears come and then I turn to something, I turn to a new phase. And I think the really important thing is giving ourselves permission. So I'm not saying for 1 minute that the answer is, you know, talking about it makes it all okay. I think it's a bit of everything. And as I've paused for thought and thought through this about why do I not have as much rage, I still get some of it. But I think I've always given myself permission to really rage. Sometimes I've raged on vlogs, and I have given, you know, I have allowed myself to do that, and I have looked at it. I think there's something about progress in that I'm moving through. I think that I've got much more savvy and educated about what's going on with my hormones, and I've made some really significant lifestyle changes in terms of eating far more vegetarian type food, and fish-based diet, far healthier diet in terms of just not as much processed shit. So I just wouldn't eat normal bread at all now, but sourdough is fantastic. I feel great on sourdough. If I eat normal bread, I feel really shit. There's a good example. I still love a glass of wine or a nice rum and ice of night, but I just don't drink the quantity that I used to. My body just, I can still enjoy a bit, but not huge amounts. I am much stricter in terms of taking rests every few hours in the day, because, you know, our adrenaline system does need to be looked after, and cortisol is, you know, our stress hormone, and we need to take care and nurture that. I have changed the type of exercise I do. It's not as combative and aggressive, and I think generally I engage in far less aggressive, competitive, bum 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 bum, go 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 stuff. You know, so I do a lot more yoga now, or I'd like to say swimming. I did go back to swimming, and having a little rest, and I'm hoping that this week I might have enough motivation to get myself back in the pool, because that is a big thing that, you know, is still definitely there, is my motivation being up and down in terms of how much I want to engage and stuff. But a last point, I was listening to a podcast today on spirituality, which you know, I do find really, really interesting. And one of the things they were saying about, you know, our environment, and I do think the environment we live in has really amplified a lot of what happens to us in the menopause, is that the environment we live in is a little bit like if you were trying to watch a film in a cinema and the camera had been shaking when the film was being recorded and the picture was constantly shaking. You probably would walk out after about 10 minutes because it'd drive you bloody mad, right? And they were using this as a metaphor and saying, but yeah, that's the life we live. Everything around us is loud or moving or demanding, or action orientated. You know, there is no stillness. This is the point of the podcast. It's, you know, the importance of finding stillness in whatever we're doing or wherever we can. And I think there is a direct correlation between the amount of time I now spend alone, in silence, just listening to Reiki healing music, which I really recommend. A lot of the time will tell Alexa to play that, and I'll just lay and listen to it for maybe half an hour, and I really find it soothing. You know, I can read a book and listen to that. It's not too disruptive. So, oh my goodness, I've lost my flow, brain fog. But yes, I think there is, yeah, that was it. So I think there is a direct correlation between the amount of stillness and silence and solitude and more peaceful activities and more peaceful way of life that I have adopted, and the reduction in the amount of rage and anger that I feel. I think that is absolutely true. Now, I know that that is not possible for many, 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 many women, because without financial freedom, we're having to go to work full time. That is difficult. So I think what it is saying is, you know, in what aspects of any of our lives can we try and find that bit of stillness, because a tiny bit is hugely better than no bit. Basically, that's what this podcast was saying, is that, even if you can just find a small amount of stillness, the output in terms of the amount of peace that will bring is hugely beneficial. So thank you for that question. It really did make me kind of reflect and go, why do I not feel as enraged as much of the time? And I think a lot of it is to do with environment and lifestyle changes for me. I hope that helps. Lots of love.